Welcome back everyone, this is Stefan on the French Cooking Academy. Thanks for joining. The results from the poll are in and you wanted to see the potato croquette. I did a poll recently to ask you what you wanted to make and you wanted to learn that one, the potato croquette. Interesting recipe today, so very simple to make. It starts with a mash that you're gonna enrich with butter and eggs. When this is done, you can then create little balls or little logs. You can use a piping bag and you can do any shape you want really. The last step consists of dipping those in flour, eggs and breadcrumbs. We're gonna coat them to give some extra fluffy goodness and then deep fry the croquettes so they really start to cook and they get golden color. They're gonna be crunchy, fluffy and delicious. So it's a beautiful recipe to learn and it's actually very easy to make. So let's not waste any more time and let's cook. Welcome everyone, I hope you're all ready. Today we're learning how to make the potato croquette. Now if you're new to the show, I'd like to quickly remind the structure of French cooking and how it works. I always talk about building blocks of cooking and how we proceed with French cooking. We always start with a base ingredient. Here is the mash, and when you add things to it, like for instance here butter and eggs, you transform a mash into something else. So in this example we started with a mash. And another video we've seen before is how to make the Duchess potatoes. I'll put a link on the video description. This is a mash enriched with butter and eggs, and then you can draw shape with that mix and cook them in the oven. They're called Duchess potatoes. So we've seen that before, and that was the second block. Start with the mash, step number 1. Add some things into it, butter and eggs, you get Duchess potatoes. Step number 2, today we're gonna take it to another level, step number 3, and create the potato croquette, which is the ultimate mix. It doesn't go any further than that with potato preparations. So we're gonna take the same mix as the Duchess potatoes, except that we're gonna shape this into little logs or little balls, and then we're gonna coat this into flour, eggs, and breadcrumbs, and deep fry the whole up to end up with these lovely croquettes, and that everybody knows. For the ingredients, this is the rough guide: eggs, potatoes, and you have to take potatoes suited for mash, salt and pepper, there's nutmeg as well, some butter, breadcrumbs, of course, good quality breadcrumbs, very important, and some oil for the deep frying. I use canola oil, you can use grapeseed oil, it's the best, but it's very expensive. Now let's see for the preparation how to make that recipe. As soon as your food preparation is done, it's ready, we're now ready to cook. So the first thing you're gonna do is put your potatoes into cold water, put them on the stove, high heat, and you're gonna add a little bit of rock salt in there. I've already put a little bit, but add a little bit more. You can put up to 2 or 3 pinches of rock salt. And you're gonna bring those to the boil, okay? When the water starts to boil, you're gonna take your timer and put it to 20 minutes. We're gonna leave them to cook for 20 minutes until they're done. They should be done by then, so we'll check them after the 20 minutes. 20 minutes have passed, I'm gonna turn the heat off and we're gonna be checking the potatoes. Now, very important for that preparation, you need to make sure you don't overcook your potatoes. So you put a knife, okay, if it goes easily into the potato, it's actually ready. Now, the one enemy in that preparation is water. So anything we're gonna do, we're gonna try to minimize the amount of water because that will really make our recipe fail. So here, as soon as it's cooked, you're gonna drain the potatoes and put them back in the pan, and then we're gonna let them dry out a little bit. My potatoes are now dry, and I'm gonna press them with my food meal. You can also use a potato press. I'm using now the same recipient that I used to cook the potatoes. So I've washed it and I've dried it. Always no water, no extra water. And I'm just gonna use my food meal and start to process these potatoes into a mash. As soon as your mash is ready, look at this lovely thing here. You're gonna put your pan back on the stove and you're gonna season with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and some grated nutmeg. When that's done, you're gonna turn your heat on low, and we're gonna further dry our mash before we start incorporating the butter. Okay, so the first step, season the mash, mix it in, and on very low heat for just a few minutes, we're gonna start to dry it again. So very quickly, your mash is gonna kind of re-dry up, and look at the texture of that mash. You can see, if I turn it, you see how there's no water in there? You can see it's like a big mass, huh? It's a Korean mass. So it's a big mass of mash that's compact. And from here, it is now time to add the butter. So little pieces. And same thing, we're gonna mix and incorporate the butter in, very gently. My butter has been incorporated, and as you can see now, it's a little bit more malleable, okay? Now, to answer the question here, because I'm sure some people are wondering, can you add cream or milk in your mash like you always do? No, don't do that. Because you will add all the water with trying to remove. And your croquette, they're not gonna hold. Most likely they're gonna fail. So it is important to keep that dryness at the whole time. Huh? So here we're good to go. When there's no water, it's nice and clean, you can then turn the heat off and we're gonna incorporate the eggs. Once the heat is off, you can add all of the egg yolks. Remember, I've separated the egg yolks from the egg whites. Huh? And same thing here, we're gonna break them. And of the heat, remember, of the heat, you're gonna gently incorporate everything and mix slowly until everything forms again into one big mash. After your eggs have been incorporated, the very last step, you turn your heat back on very low, and just for a minute or two maximum, you're gonna keep on mixing to make sure we slightly start to cook the eggs, but not really cooking them. It's just to make what we call the liaison, to bind everything together. So 1 or 2 minutes maximum on very low heat and we're done. As soon as your mash is ready, you're gonna reserve all of the mash in a tray. And technically here you've done the Duchess potato mix, and this is as far as we went the last time on the other video with the Duchess potato. So if you want just a little recap, you can put this in a piping bag and with these star-shaped tips, make this little form like that on the tray and cook them in the oven as a Duchess potato. Today we're making the potato croquette, which is going one step further. So from here, we need to leave this to cool down before we can start putting into the flour, the eggs and the breadcrumbs and throw it in the deep fryer. Okay, so the best thing you can do is you can leave it like this in the tray, cover it with a film and put it in the fridge. But what I like to do to prepare for my to make the little logs, I'm gonna put everything directly in the piping bag and just leave it in the fridge a little bit. So it's gonna protect it and it's gonna be ready to go when it's cold to make the little logs. Now, very quick tip for the piping bag if you wonder what I'm gonna use, because the logs, they have to be quite thick. I'm using a piping bag without any tips. So you see that opening here is going to be wide enough for the potato. But the trick I'm doing to put the potatoes in and not putting it everywhere, you know, I've got this firm bit here. I'm just folding it like that. And as I'm using one of these office things, I don't know, the clips, I don't know what they're called. I'm doing this, look at that, bang. And that is sealing my bag, and I can now feed it with the potato. I can push it in, it's not a problem, it's not going to go anywhere, and store this in my fridge. While your mash or your potato mix is cooling down, you just have enough time to prepare these things. And this is the anglaise setup that we call pané à l'anglaise in French. And this is to coat the potatoes for the croquette. So it's always the same thing. You always have plain flour on one side. Then usually you can have full eggs, or in this case, to save eggs, we're actually just gonna use the egg whites we had. And you're just gonna beat them a little bit to make them a little bit foamy. And you get the idea. And then we're gonna use them like that. Next, breadcrumbs, very important. So we're gonna go from flour to eggs to breadcrumb, roll them, and then finish in that tray over here that barely fits in the frame, and to store these croquettes when they are done. All right, so when your mix is cold enough and malleable enough, we're gonna make the little ball. So I'm gonna try to do that with the camera in one hand. So I'm using that piping bag here, I don't know if you can see, and I'm gonna try to press just one of the thing. It has to be like, okay, just gonna give you one example. Okay, so just that little chunk here. And the first thing is the flour. So very gently, we're gonna roll these things gently in the flour and then go to the next bath. So you remove the excess, you have to be gentle, and then we're gonna go to the eggs. And now, sorry for the camera work. With one hand, usually, I'm gonna put this in the egg mix. See, this is nice and foamy. Okay, drain it, and as soon as it's done, I plunge it in the breadcrumbs. Now the breadcrumbs, usually, I'll use my other hand to kind of cover the croquettes and to finish to shape them. Yeah? So you got the idea, yeah? And you get this kind of rustic potato croquettes. So you're gonna make all of those, but this size about 2 inches in size, a bit more, and reserve them nicely on a tray. All right, so I've made some potato croquette, as you can see here. And the first feedback I can give you, because it's also the first time I'm trying this technique here, be very gentle when you roll them around. So don't grab them like that in the flour, but do some kind of a scooping technique and roll them with both hands like this in all the ingredients. You do the flour, then the eggs, and then the crumbs, because they're very fragile. So last step, you need to put them in the fridge until they're really firm and cold before you deep fry them. Again, 5 or 10 minutes in the fridge and then deep fry. Very quickly, I wanted to show you something. When I don't have a homemade mayonnaise, what I do, I take a good mayonnaise from the pot, and especially for these things. It's not French, so I just wanted to show you what I'm usually doing. So I take a simple mayonnaise. What I'm using here is these things. These are like chipotle pimientos, you know, like spicy chilies, and they are smoky in flavor. So I put a little bit of mayonnaise, a little bit of chipotle, and a good zest, good grating of lemon. When the lemon is in, it's just a matter of mixing everything together. So it's nothing special, but that makes you a smoked chili mayonnaise with a tanginess that is just plain amazing because of these freshly opened chipotle chilies and the zest of the lemon. So you see that color? I'm going to be using that with the potatoes. That smokiness, really great. And now for the deep frying, the oil has to be at 170 degrees Celsius, which is about 338 Fahrenheit. I think 330 is good. So plunge the croquette very gently, they're very fragile, in the oil, maybe 2 or 3 at a time. And we're just gonna wait until they are nice and golden, and then we're gonna take them out. Okay, so as you can see, when they start to float again, it's about 4 or 5 minutes, they're usually ready on their own. So it's very easy to know when they're ready. So you see you got that nice color here, and now they're ready to be served. So you can put them on on a small plate. I've just put this with a paper towel just to show you here without burning myself. And basically there you go. So I'm gonna cook them all and then show them the result. Wow, finally the croquettes are out of the oil and I'm running out of light, so it's getting dark outside, so I really had to rush. Sorry for the presentation here, but here they are, basically the croquettes. It's very soft, they're still very hot, so I've made my special mayonnaise on here, and I'm just gonna, try to open one and see how, I don't know which one to choose actually. So let's have a look. This is quite resistant, good crust. Ooh, look at that. Let me dip that in. Wow, that's a lot of mayonnaise. It's like a fluffy little cloud. Now really, you can still feel the potato, like the mash inside, nice and warm. So it's a bit like a very good mash. Let me take more mayonnaise. A very good mash with a crunchiness on the outside, so you can feel the butter, a little bit of nutmeg, and then with that mayo there, kind of addictive. I'll take another one. But oh, sorry. Okay, but guys, that's it. There's a video of the potato croquettes. It's not too difficult to do. It's a bit long-winded because there's all these stages. So my recommendation: make sure your mash is cold before you cut these things, and be very gentle when you roll them. When it comes to the deep frying, it's pretty okay. I thought some of them is going to be open, but it's fairly solid, and you can really tap them. They're not going to break down, and then you can just enjoy and eat them. Lovely. So I hope you enjoyed that video today. And as always, you can see me again next week for another French cooking video. Okay, see you all next time. Bye bye.